it's important to know yourself. It's important to recognize what your level of ability is right now and to teach from that space. Don't try to teach from somebody else's chord. Teach from your own. So this is an important message I want to share for any man out there who wants to be a leader of men, who wants to start a men's organization, who even just wants to lead a men's program or a men's workshop. And I want you to pause before you jump into that and watch this video right now. Something really important that was handed down to me from my mentors, from guys that I learned from. And the message is knowing what your level of capability actually is. Knowing where your expertise and your experience are in this moment and teaching from that place. When I was learning to practice martial arts and I was learning Capoeira, for the first 4 months of practicing, I trained twice a day, every day, 7 days a week for 4 months. I was so into it. I was so enraptured by learning this new skill set that I'd never had before. And I had a teacher at the time, Mestre Umbrigno, and I just really took to him. I really took to his vibe. I really loved the way that he taught, the way that he instructed. He was so much about that essence of mastery and discipline and taking your time to learn something. And so after 4 months, I was leaving New York and moving to California, and Mestre Umbrigno and the rest of the community really honored me and sending me off in a beautiful way. And afterwards, he pulled me aside and he grabbed my shoulder and he said, "Hey, listen, I want to tell you something." He said, "You're a teacher." And I kind of looked over my shoulder for a minute and said, "Are you talking to me? I don't know if you know this, Mestre. I've only been here for 4 months." And he said, No, just hear me out. He's like, "You're a teacher. I've watched you. I've watched you share with the other students in class. I've watched you point out details and distinctions that you've picked up quicker than some of the other students. And I've seen the way that you help them get better." He's like, "That's a teacher. That's what teachers do. And even though you don't have one of these," and he held up his cord, his cord that he'd worked 30 years for, "but even though you don't have one of these, you're still a teacher." And I said, "Well, Mestre, I'm leaving for California next week, and you're telling me now I'm a teacher. I've been doing this for 4 months. What am I supposed to do with that?" He said, "Well, hear me out. I'm not telling you to go and teach the things that I know. I'm not telling you to go out and teach the things that this cord represents." And he held his cord. He said, I'm telling you to go out and teach the things that this cord represents." And he held the cord that was gifted to me. He said, "I want you to go out there and I want you to teach what you know. But it's important that you know what you're capable of, that you know what you can hold your foundation for, that you teach the things that you have really embodied and mastered for yourself, but don't step outside of that." And I wanted to share that simple message today because it's a wisdom that stuck with me all throughout my life for the past 10 years. The reminder that I don't have to wait to give back to people who are not at the level or stage that I'm at with anything that I do. But I gotta be really responsible for what I'm teaching people, what I'm offering to them. Especially when we start talking about things like men's work. When we're talking about dealing with deep traumas and wounds and emotions that have been suppressed for lifetimes, that we only venture into that space leading when we know what we're doing. And the risk I see right now is it's very popular to start a men's organization, to start a men's program, to do an 8-week course. I see a lot of guys who get really excited and inspired by going through someone else's program, that they then want to take those things that they learned there and rework them, change some of the wording, and then offer it to other guys out there. It's irresponsible. 12 weeks in a program is not enough time to embody that stuff. The men who are teaching this, who are really leading this direction forward for men, are guys who've been doing this for decades. Guys who have been doing this day in and day out for months, years, decades on end. And it's not to say that you have to wait years or decades to start teaching and offering something back, but to really look at yourself and recognize, am I prepared to hold this space? What has prepared me to do this? Have I spent time learning how to do this underneath the guidance and tutelage of someone else? For sure. At some point, somebody created something out of nowhere and started delivering that and had to take that leap. But when you do that, that's a risk. You're risking people's safeties. You're risking people being taken care of. When people step into a space and they trust you to go into a deep process, they're trusting that you have your feet rooted deeper than anybody else in that room. So it's a responsibility. not one to be taken on lightly. Now, I think any man out there who's listening to this message, or even just becoming privy to some of these ideas about being more honest and vulnerable with other men, supporting each other, getting down to the finer truths, the finer realities of our existence, holding each other accountable. Anybody can do that. Go grab 3 guys, start a fire, sit around the fire, and commit to talking about honesty. Create some simple agreements for each other. Awesome, absolutely, do that. But when you start taking that to another level of facilitating programs, facilitating deeper trauma releases, wound reliving, breath work, there's literally people who have died in breathwork sessions because they've been led by people who weren't properly trained. And it's important to really recognize what you need to do to prepare yourself and put yourself in a position to be responsible for other people's lives, for other people's well-being. That's what leaders do. Leaders take care of people. Leaders don't let their ego get in the way, their desire to be seen as something that they're not yet, or to be appreciated or compensated for something that they're not yet, at the cost of other people's well-being. Even myself, when I started taking guys out for fasts, wilderness fasts, I brought my bro with me who's been doing this for 20 years. He's been doing this for 2/3 of my life. He's seen everything, he knows everything, and then he trained with people who'd been doing this for as long when he was going through that too. And all of the other processes that I bring into my work, it's always stuff that I've learned from other people, that I've practiced facilitating under the guidance and tutelage of somebody else, and then delivered as the person holding the anchor in the room. It's important to know yourself. It's important to recognize what your level of ability is right now and to teach from that space. Don't try to teach from somebody else's cord. Teach from your own. Teach from your own body of wisdom, because that alone is valuable to somebody else out there. You don't have to elevate yourself to some grand stage so that you can be of service to more people. Just teach the people who are looking for something that you've got, and from there you can't go wrong. And for everything else that you want to lead or you want to be offering other people, spend the time and dedicate yourself to learning from somebody who knows what they're doing, so that in the end of the day, you're more prepared to take care of the people that you're leading. So make sure, if you're a man who's looking to lead men's work, you watch this video again. If you know somebody who's leading an organization or starting a program, starting a workshop, anything, tag them in the comments, send this video to them directly, tell them to watch it right now so that we can all create a culture of greater responsibility for what we're putting out into the world. And if you dig what we're dropping here on the Rising Man podcast and the YouTube channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and keep checking us out each and every week we drop that fire. All right, peace.